Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video where some things that on the surface look good have happened, but actually almost certainly not going to be that useful for the real problem we're all concerned about, and there's a risk that this may be seen, that the people in power might be like, oh, okay, problem solved, good, and the problem won't be solved. So, 18 plus for gambling. Sounds pretty good to you and me, right? But maybe the rating board doesn't actually understand what's going on or what the real concerns of people are. So, right. The game, contains elements that encourage or teach gambling. These simulations of gambling refer to games of chance that are normally carried out in casinos or gambling halls. Some older titles can be found with PEGI 12 or 16, but PEGI changed the criteria for this classification in 2020, which meant that new games with this sort of content are always PEGI 18. So if there is simulated gambling in a game, it will be rated 18. Which does make me think about, was it one of the NBA games that had this sort of like casino vibes going on?
Yeah.
That would now fall into this and be rated an 18, I would hope. But there's some issues. So some of the specifics here. A game has to either teach or glamorise, right? So this is talking about the sorts of betting and gambling for money that's normally carried out in casinos, gambling halls, or racetracks. Now, you're not going to a horse racing track or a dog racing track or something and buying some loot boxes. Right? That's what a lot of us people who actually play video games are going to immediately think. So this does not cover games where betting or gambling is simply part of a general storyline, which I actually do think is fair. Right? Like a casino heist movie shouldn't be an 18 just because a casino is involved. The game must actually teach a player how to gamble or glamorize that. So it's kind of hard to think about a game where, you know, gambling is featured as a plot point, but like not a mini game or something like that. Even think about, say, Red Dead. I'm pretty sure you can play Texas Hold'em in Red Dead, you know, gamble some, and that is an 18 plus game anyway, but that's the sort of weird thing. Like, if you just want to do a bit of a fantasy, should it be like that? As an example, let's just say this is not a feature in our game, but for a bit when you're in a boat, would it not be cool if we could just have, you know, a quick little game of cards with one of your shipmates, make that a nice little conversation? Would we be glamorizing it? No. Would there be simulated gambling? Yes. Could that then risk making our game be rated an 18 in a way where I think most people would say, well, thematically, it's a bunch of sailors playing cards. Should make sense. So, not particularly useful for the things that we actually, care about. Now, this doesn't impact re-releases, and it does mean the games that are historically rated, a PEGI 12 will actually keep that rating. So a Pokemon Red and Blue re-release would be fine, despite getting a 12 because of the slot machines in the game corner. Now, some side effects here. If something gets an 18 rating for simulated gambling that's otherwise mild, the other descriptors won't be there. So parents will just see 18 for simulated gambling, but will be unable to determine if the game's other content is worthy of a 7, 12, or a 16. As an example, if we decided to do a game of cards played by fictional sailors in our game, you know, maybe you're just betting a bit of food or some cigarettes or something, then could we fall foul of this and be an 18? Would that be reflective of the overall game content of our game? I don't really think so. So, you know, what is a better solution here? Maybe something like a QR code a parent could scan to check the entry that highlights all descriptors or something, but basically the point is it's not particularly useful. But we can get into what's actually wrong here, because this is the real problem, the real meat of this story. Nobody gives a shit about playing Gwent or playing some Texas Hold'em in Red Dead. Like, literally, no one cares. Nobody really views that as problem gambling in a video game. What people view as problem gambling in the video game is the stuff that predates to the exact same psychological triggers as the gambling that is ran by casinos. Which is very different from walking into a bar in the Old West and playing a few hands of poker. Right? It's just a different thing. So this basically has completely missed the problem that people have actually got with in-game purchases and gambling or you could maybe say gambling in games. Playing cards in-game for in-game money is technically gambling, but the stakes are low. It's in-game currency, divorced from real-world value, and it's there reinforcing, part of the fantasy of a game world. But it's when you have real money for the feeling of gambling, that's where there is a problem, especially when the developer is profiting. when you have your loot boxes with all the bells and whistles basically of a friggin' casino. That's the actual problem that people have got. So it's not the mechanics of real life gambling that's the issue. I don't think people are particularly worried. I mean, maybe you could say there's a causal link, but people aren't worried that somebody is going to play Red Dead Redemption and then go to their local casino and ruin their life. Maybe there is a worry there, but I don't think it's a particularly strong one as compared to the actual problem being felt right now, where you get the experience of gambling through gambling-like mechanics. And in the same way that you're spinning the fruit machine, wanting to see those things line up, you are looking for that legendary to come out of your Hearthstone card pack. And it is kind of like that with regular card packs. You buy a booster pack for Magic or something. There is a little bit of a difference with Magic, though, where it's a TCG, not a CCG. So you kind of get the point, right? It's about that feeling of gambling that can create those addictive tendencies that can really turn into real-world gambling. And I think that, glorifies gambling more than anything else. And even if somebody who is a whale for Overwatch, even if they never go to a real-life casino and participate in what a government agency will see to be real-life problem gambling, well, that's fine, because they're basically doing problem gambling inside Overwatch, benefiting Blizzard anyway. Just that something like this does not cover that, when it's like this is what the real problem is. Not just a few hands of poker thematically done in a game where it makes sense for there to be some poker. Unlike that NBA game. So why do this?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's clearly they're misguided. They clearly, maybe they're doing what they can within reason without being wrecked by the lobbyists and stuff from game companies. But the most obvious reason is in response to, especially in Europe, because it's PEGI have done this, the ESRB haven't done this, at least to my knowledge. It's pressure. Because they need to do what's right by the consumer, of course, but also by the government, because that's people who are going to step on them. The government in the UK is looking at gambling in video games, looking at causal links between, problem gambling and video game use, stuff like that. So they've definitely, PEGI are absolutely aware of that happening. They can't not be. And then their solution is this, which completely misses the mark of the wider community conversation. And it's just, they're not solving the problem. They are solving their problem, not the problem. Their problem will be, a bunch of completely out of touch government people going, hello there, Mr. PEGI man and PEGI woman and, everyone who runs that. What are you doing to solve this problem? Because I'm going to be, down your throat until you give me an answer. And they go, look at what we've done. We have made gambling, when gambling appears in a video game, because even this is how they could explain it in their own words to the people that will be giving them pressure. When it comes to gambling in video games, that is absolutely unacceptable. And we have changed the rating now where it used to be a 12 or a 16, where a 12-year-old, we thought, maybe that was fine for them to have a little gamble in a video game. But we have seen the evidence, and now we believe that you need to be 18 years of age before you are old enough to make to cause those links, for you can decide for yourself whether or not you're allowed to gamble and how it feels to you. So in that way, video games will not be allowed to poison our children's minds.
It's a firm line to defend the community.
Yeah, those video games will no longer be poisoning the minds of children via these awful gambling mechanics. No longer. Fucking hell. No longer will you be able to set your child down in front of a video game and have them learn the devil's trickery of Texas Hold'em.
Yeah,
never again.
Just that wee Jimmy's emptied his PayPal account into FIFA Ultimate Team.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's the fun.
Yeah,
so there is a way where these could have a bit of a wombo combo. The old wombo combo. There's another factor. The UK government is currently looking into whether or not loot boxes constitute gambling. And that could be an important thing. It's just going to take a very long time. Because if this is saying gambling equals 18, but there's no firm thing that loot boxes for money equals gambling, then whenever the government perspective changes to loot boxes equals gambling, then it'll be able to slot into this classification meaning that loot boxes equal 18 plus.
Yep.
Meaning that, at least, officially, because kids are still going to play Overwatch, but officially, kids won't be allowed to have Overwatch. They won't be able to buy it. A parent will have to buy it for the kids because of that loot box mechanic. And it's a sort of thing, there's some genres, there's some things where, if it becomes an R-rated movie, there's some movies you make them R-rated and bam, they're going to do way better because you can probably do what you want to do.
Yeah.
But there are some other movies where, you can tell, like the big studios, they're always trying to make something a 12A because that's what ends up making the most business sense. And they probably worked it out through a bunch of very advanced analytics. So if the same thing happens to games, does Overwatch 3, most of the spend was going to be above 18 anyway, so they're probably fine to keep it being an 18 plus because I think 17-year-olds are probably not the whales who are spending multiple thousands of pounds, willingly in games. But certainly this will be something that companies will have to think about if it comes to pass. We're just not quite there yet.
Yep.
So the danger with this is people seeing this and thinking, job done, problem solved, there we go. We can all pat each other in the back and be happy. That is absolutely not the case. There's not that many games that will actually fall into this. And actually, there's loads of games that are going to be, or some games at least, that would be 18 because of this that really shouldn't be. And there's issues, on the creative side. For our game, in the prologue, you are in a boat. Would it be nice to have a few fun little things going on? Maybe a little game of dice between the sailors. You're playing the game of dice while your characters, have a bit of a chat. Well, by what read, would it apply to this? Would that impact your rating? And then would that impact your sales? So this basically has got very little positive upside right now, but just has a creative downside.
Yep.
So what I would want to see is, Gwent. Is Gwent going to be, I actually forget if you could bet any in-game money on Gwent in Witcher 3.
Yeah.
But, the point stands, right? You should be able to. That's just a fun little part of a game. But I don't think that should really constitute full, 18-plus casino experience.
Yeah, well, that's where I think they completely missed the mark. More than even just kind of vaguely traditional gambling. Because I was looking through a couple of different things. Because I was thinking about specifically the Final Fantasy series. So many of those games have, gambling-like minigames. There's so many things where you're playing fictional games instead of real games. You're not sitting in, you're not going to Spira to play some Texas Hold'em. You go and you play some Sphere Break in 10-2, or you play Triple Triad in FF8. Those don't have gambling mentioned under the 12 and 16 ratings that they have. So I think this only literally applies to actual real world games, or like a racetrack, for example, or Texas Hold'em, or using literal playing cards, or using literal dice. I feel like that's the only one that's going to play, and slot machines as well, I guess. I feel like that's the only one where it's going to be applicable, which completely destroys, the problem isn't that you're learning how to play Texas in a game and then running down to the casino down the street or into your local Oasis, whatever it's called, and going and playing some Texas there. The point is the psychological triggers that are being caused. Yeah. And they aren't just from playing gambling games. They're from all the bells and whistles attached to your game. That's the bing bing wahoos of opening your loot box, or the bing bing wahoos of rolling for extra stuff at the end of a run or something like that. You could even go so far as to say it, actual loot mechanics in games can fall afoul of this, which is where they have to be very careful of exactly what to do. But it's it seems like these rating boards are doing what they can, but fundamentally there's a deeper problem to solve overall, and we're not quite there yet.
Deeper problem to solve. This isn't particularly useful. Depending on the reading, it could even be creatively stifling and a problem, and that's kind of what's going on. So there we go. That's that. Let us know what you think, and eventually, maybe in a few years, we will be done with all of this loot box trudgery, and we can go back to talking about games, which I greatly prefer. I guess the most I can say is thank you to Electronic Arts for taking the piss so hard that all of gaming united against this bullshit. And hey, still somehow Blizzard will get away with it in Overwatch 2. And that'll be that. So,
Of course.
that's it for us. Have a great day. See you later.